Well, we will, Scott will join us, but we have a quorum, so let's giddy up and get going. So, welcome to the Berlin Select Board meeting. Today is Monday, April 4th. We continue to meet virtually only in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's see. We have a call to order at 7 p.m. Announcements. Meeting of the Berlin Select Board are generally recorded for transmission on both the Berlin Cable Television Access Channel and YouTube. Your voice, image, and or phone number may be recorded. First up, okay, Chris, what'd you find? Approval of minutes, March 28th, open session.
Well, I wasn't going to mention it, but now that you asked, there was an extra parenthesis at the very top, or else you need to add one. So there's two. But other than that, I was just going to say, motion to approve.
Is there a preference, either add or remove?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. No. All right. Mr. Hawkins, nice to see you.
Hi.
All right. So we have a motion. Scott, is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motion and a second. Stone eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
All right. Thank you. All right. T1 or T2, over to you both for correspondence. What has come in?
Whoop, you're muted.
And we're both muted. So June, I will mention the two that I highlighted for this week. If you have anything else to add, just jump in. All right. So the first one is that you've probably seen some communications from our cable access director and from the chair of the cable access committee discussing the need to start considering additional funding for our cable access channels. Tonight, I just wanted to be sure that you've all received that. And for tonight only, rather than discussing it at length, just know that there has been these communications, and I recommend that it be discussed at your upcoming meetings. I don't know that this is an urgent matter for the coming fiscal year. They've already submitted their budget request, and it's already on the warrant. And it may be a discussion for future years. In one of those emails, it was mentioned that there could be some changes with upcoming legislation. I would also add, keep in mind our license agreement with Spectrum, with Charter, and the fact that it covers cable TV only. I think that we have quickly outpaced these types of agreements where, especially now with the pandemic, we really do, or they really need to consider the use of the internet in our ability to watch meetings and things like that. So that's something that also has to be looked at long term. Any comments on that? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Perfect timing. Tonight I wandered down and I signed the warrant, and I noticed that the station manager bill for cable was rather high. Well, maybe it's not high, but to me it was high for that amount. And I did want to bring it up and figure out what it was, maybe ask June, where are we with the budget? Do they have enough money in it? It just seemed, for that short period of time, for the work that's being done, and maybe it's my own lack of information as to what exactly goes on with that, but for that amount of money that was listed in the billing, I'm just kind of curious.
The amount of the bill for this billing period that you actually saw, I believe that was for 2 months though. It is a little bit higher. It's probably $1,000 or so more than what it normally is. I didn't get a chance to really look it over to compare it to what the others were. But with all of the amount of meetings that are being Zoomed and taped, and then they're editing them to put them up, it's taking a lot more time. When I double checked through the end of December, it looked like they were still okay. I did see the email though that that Brittany had sent out that said that it looked like they may run out of money this year. They are paid through, or they spend money through the PEG grant, which is appropriated at the annual town meeting. There is no line item, so there is nothing that we could do for like a reserve fund transfer or anything like that, because it's all based on the grant funding. I don't know enough about it to actually make a recommendation other than being a little bit more careful as far as the taping goes, maybe. So that way there wouldn't be as much editing that may be needed in a tape, that where they just plug it on and let it go. You know, I don't know if, I know with the Zoom, it's nice that people get to see everything that's going on. I don't know if we want to limit the amount of Zoom meetings that we're actually posting to cable. So I guess there's a little bit more discussion that still needs to be done before we could really tie out and you know, give it a definite that, you know, this is the problem. I don't know too, if I know that I haven't seen any extra hours coming in for Roger, which I know that before he was doing the taping, where now it's being recorded versus being taped. So I don't know if there's something else that we could have, like an intern or something like that come in to maybe assist. But again, that's part of cable to actually make those recommendations or processes as far as who's doing what. But
I mean, yeah, definitely more thought for food for thought in an upcoming meeting, you know, and I'm wondering too, with the mask mandate lifted and maybe COVID kind of sort of behaving and committees wanting to come back and meet in person, Zoom, maybe Zoom, kind of sort of Zoom, maybe recorded with the rooms, hopefully moving towards being wired, which was cable's request from probably 2-3 years ago. I'd be curious to watch the amount of money that is being spent. Again, to me, it just seemed exorbitant to like where I was flipping through them and saw it and actually said things.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Wow.
Yeah. I said,
So
wow.
This is the reason that I suggested that it be discussed at upcoming meetings, because there are a lot of different factors to consider here. So, you know, we've got Zoom, we've got the AV meeting room upgrades. We've got cable access's desire to tape any and all meetings, and they actually want to turn a focus onto events as opposed to meetings, which is something else that really needs to be discussed, because we're talking PEG access money, public educational governmental money. So it's not one or the other, it's a combination. So this does require further discussion, I think. Okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
All right, so the next piece of correspondence I have is actually a request for the board to sign a letter, a dunning letter to the managers, co-managers of Riverbridge North LLC regarding their calendar year 2020 leasehold share payment to the town. Back in June of 2021, they advised of the amount of money the town should be expecting, and it does not appear that we ever received the check. So I'm asking the select board, or if the select board would prefer, authorize the chair of the select board to sign the letter on behalf of the board so Mary can get this mailed out to them.
I would make a motion for Peg to sign the letter.
I'll second.
Okay, Stone Eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
So Margaret, before we go, and I know that we have Chief Shatner coming up soon, this is the same entity that we're constantly chasing for money. So if I read the emails correctly, you're telling us that they didn't pay the money that they contractually are obligated to pay for the town, pay to the town?
We didn't receive the River Run 50% leasehold payment for calendar year 2020. So this letter actually combines that overdue payment, or a request for that overdue payment, with the calendar year 2021 payment that we'd be sending out a notice on right now anyway.
And I'm going to assume, like the River Bridge payments, that there is no opportunity or any words in there to collect for late fees, lack of payment, anything like that?
I don't want to jump to conclusions, but to my knowledge, after having read the development agreement modifications, there are no enforcement provisions for payments. in the agreements. So.
All right, I'm gonna stop talking before I say something. Go ahead.
No, those are the primary things that I wanted to bring up under correspondence tonight. There is something else that I think I'd like to wait for Fred to share with the board when he comes and meets with the board.
Okay. All right. Mary, if you can let me know when the letter's ready, I will pop down and sign it and be ready to roll.
Did we vote?
Yes, you made a motion, Scott seconded. We all said aye.
Right. We all said aye, but right before Peg started chatting.
Okay.
Which was the right way of doing it. Yep.
Okay. All right. So Margaret, you'll hold off. TAT1, you'll hold off for any more correspondence. Okay. All right.
Yes.
So right on time. Oh, general public comment. I almost missed it. Chris would have reminded me though. Let's see. Anybody in the audience? Nope. So if we could please bring Chief Shatna to the front, and then when he's done, we'll bring in Victoria right behind him.
Hello, how are you guys tonight?
Hey,
Good.
Chief.
All right, so the month of February, the department handled 1,369 calls for service, including 16 cases involving criminal charges, 13 motor vehicle crashes, 1 with injuries, 148 motor vehicle stops, and 106 citations issued. Sent 3 officers to the servant officer class, which has now put 6 out of the 8 of us into that class. We have 2 more officers that are going to complete that class in May. So all the full-time officers will have received this training, except the new potential, I should have put hires, which I think you saw later on in the report. Officer Belleville attended a 1-week crisis intervention team training at Southbridge PD this past month. Once completed, we had a meeting with Victoria as well as Open Sky, which is an organization that will help us facilitate a grant application to help us pay for social services within the town of Berlin. I know currently I think Victoria is under ARPA funds for her social services. So there are grants out there that will help us with that. I know she's going to come up a little while and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Officer Plant completed her training in RAD this past month. She attended 5 9-hour days of training and is now certified to teach defensive tactics to youth ages 3 to 12. She'll be going to the next phase of training for adults in the near future once the classes open up, which are very difficult to get into. And I've already spoken with neighboring towns so we can have a successful implementation of this program, as well as keep Officer Plant certified, as she has to do basically in service every year and has to do a certain amount of trainings and partake in final exams where they actually put on the RAD suit and do the aggression part of it. The drug task force, the sergeant detective assisted in 2 raids this past month. The raids took crack, fentanyl, heroin, ecstasy off the streets, which made it, which obviously make it away to our community. Although it didn't happen in our community, we stopped it from coming. They also seized $8,500 in cash, as well as an unregistered 9mm Glock in one of the raids. Traffic Safety Advisory Committee, the past month was a quick meeting, and
You have to go?
No. Yeah, so this past month was a quick meeting, but we are going to revisit the stop signs for Carter and Highland Street at our next meeting. And hopefully we can come to a final agreement on what needs to be done to help with the traffic on Carter Street. Also, we'll be discussing the intersections of Randall and Peach Hill Road. We had a sign request come in for that. Radio update. So as you know, Chief Clark and I went to the Capital Planning Committee regarding our radios and how our radios have not been working. Well, one of the vendors reached out to me, came in, did a quick scan of our system. We went up to the Taylor Road site. He opened up the cabinet, all the lights were green. And he says, all right, this one's fine. And he went to test it and it wasn't working, even though all the lights are green. Fortunately, he had an old laptop and he was able to hook up to our repeaters that were manufactured in the 90s and required MS-DOS to program them. Anybody in the computer industry knows MS-DOS has been long gone.
Dinosaur.
So he fortunately got us back up and running. We realized that our major radio failure was the fact that our repeater was not working, police or fire, on Taylor Road. Subsequently, speaking with 3 companies, you know, I'm going to try to come up with another 3-phase plan to get our radios back to where they need to be, which, you know, obviously requires antenna inspections, which, you know, one was done from the ground, and our antennas are obviously troublesome. They're fraying. They may have been hit by lightning. They're not sure. But I'm learning a lot about radios, something I never thought I would. But I'm going to utilize the 3 companies, and with Chief Clark being back this week, I think we need to take another approach at this and start from replacing our antennas, which the first quote I got was around $35,000. But I still have a couple more companies to work with on that. Replace our antennas, and hopefully maybe that's the issue we're getting with interference on our radios. I think it's coming from when they turned on 5G, we're getting a static noise on our radios. So new antennas may take care of that, and then we can look at replacing other things in the future, as well as getting fiber optic lines set up for each tower. Then I signed an MOU with Worcester County DA's office. They're actually, I said they are starting a program that will help us lead people's services after drug overdoses. It actually started 2 years ago, but they just got the money for recovery coaches. So I signed an MOU with them, stating that we'll advise them within 48 hours if we have a resident in a drug overdose, and they will provide a recovery coach actually sent to the town to assist the person and assist us in getting the people help. Let's see. Then lastly, as you probably know, Officer Reed has left our department to begin work with the Lunenburg Police Department this week. He was an asset to our department and definitely will be missed. And we'll be working on another hire ASAP. Academies have been an issue, but hopefully we can send our newest hires to an academy as close as possible. Right now, Boylston is full for July. I'm going to still put him in there, at least the first officer, get him in there. I'm hoping, I really don't want to send people to Linfield, Chicopee, or Randolph, because we're responsible from the time they leave the station till the time they get back. And that's going to incur another 2 to 3 hours a day of traveling. So I'm going to do my best to try to keep them local.
All right. I have 2 questions, of course, but I'll always go last. Chris, Scott, or maybe 3.
Yep.
Chris, you're on mute.
I'm good right now.
Scott?
So, just because it was a story for Boston, what do we do with our forfeiture receipts? So when someone forfeits items and we turn that into cash, where does that money go?
Are you talking about on the drug task force?
No.
Right.
When any money is received from the seizure of drugs, so and drug monies, there is a drug forfeiture account, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, it's for law enforcement is what it's for.
Yeah. So the 2 cases we did this past month, we're looking at probably 12 to 18 months for any money to come in. That money doesn't come in until the cases are settled. You know, we had a $22,000 case last July, I believe it was, and that's still in the court system. So we're still waiting. And that's going to be ours. That was something we did ourselves.
And so that money goes into like a reserve fund, and then who has the authority to spend out of it?
It actually goes, it's kind of like a revolving fund. So it comes into the town and it goes into a special law enforcement account, which is what it's called. And that's what the statute is under. And it's pretty much so that it can be reused for drug investigations.
And so the spending of that is at the discretion of the police chief?
Yeah. There isn't a ton of money in there.
No,
it doesn't come in as a huge amount, but yeah. And
no,
I have to
I'd
say,
like to think we don't have a lot of large drug forfeitures in this town because I mean, I know there are some. I don't live in but obviously Boston, they were talking about millions of that fund, and ours is clearly thousands, if that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can rest assured that I would not go out spend that money without talking to TA or TA2 or the board. I mean, that's I'm a pretty frugal person, so
yeah, it's really, I have to say though, it's really hard to get a drug dealer to give us a receipt. So there's a special way that we have forms to fill out so that he has to ask for it a certain way, and paperwork he has to fill out. So it's not just
the other side of it, where other towns have gotten in trouble is police chiefs then spending that money on things that are probably not always in the direction where the town is trying to take their thing. Now, I think in this town, both with Chief Shartner and the last even couple of chiefs, I think there's a decent alignment about what the role is for police in town and what the priorities are. But it'd be neat if there was a process that if money is spent out of it, at least somehow that spending is notified to, I don't know if it's part of the annual report or, I don't think it needs, I just like to make sure there's accountability for all these, I'm not a big fan of all the special little funds that exist out there.
Yeah, it's accounted for in the town report every year.
Okay.
And the monthly reports that go out.
Yeah,
I think it's like usually once a year, maybe, we have money taken out of it. That's about it.
I believe it's also captured on the recap too, June, right? Under fines and forfeitures. Is that where that's captured? Oh,
no, it's actually, it's a special revenue fund, so it's totally separate.
Okay.
I think in the past, the only time money's been taken out of that was actually to support the DARE program.
Right.
Oh, different account.
Oh, that's a whole different account?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm learning too.
Yeah, so I'm not asking any actions to be taken at this point. I've gotten at least enough of my questions answered for
now. So Eric, a couple questions for you. Where Officer Plant has been going to these classes, RAD, it is short for what?
It's rape, aggression, defense.
Okay. And you said that she's trained for up to 12?
Class is 3 to 12-year-olds that she took. The next class will be adults.
So for the adult class, is that something that she'll just be teaching to the force, or is it something that she'd actually be able to offer to the public, something like Boylston had done about a month back?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty similar to Boylston. I've actually spoken with the curriculum coordinator at Tohoto, and our goal is to get it implemented into the high school as part of a class for especially seniors.
Okay. All right. So the radios. Yes. I know that in one email it was 100,000 that you need, and then another email it was 44 or 48,000 that you needed. Do you have any idea what you're looking at for a potential cost to fix radios / antennas / cable, whatever you need?
Replaced everything. If we got the okay and replaced everything tomorrow, we'll be asking for 44,000 on top of the 344,000 that's in the account. I believe it was around 45,000. It could, depending on which quote we go to, that we have. We also have to take into account there could be a $10,000 to $15,000 uptick in that to make sure that we can hook into Neshoba in the future, the way the Neshoba Regional Dispatch is going. So we also have to take into advisement like where they're going with their radio system at the center itself. So we just have to make sure that we can integrate into them in the future.
Okay. If I may, Chief, I resent all the capital request forms to everybody. So I need you or Chief Clark to fill that out and get it submitted to the Capital Planning Committee.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I'll speak with him probably on Wednesday or Thursday, give him a little bit of time to catch up from last week, and we'll get on that probably Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay. And then last question, Chief. I know at the capital planning meeting that you and Chief Clark were at, they had asked for one of the vendors or all the vendors to possibly come in and just talk to everybody. Is that still a possibility?
Yeah, one of the vendors has pretty much agreed to that, and we're just trying to figure out which avenue. We have 3 vendors, and it's basically like the platform is the same, but the options they want us to go with vary from each vendor. So Chief Clark and I need to discuss which options would be applicable for Berlin. We use this little analogy. We're looking for a Tahoe, not an Escalade. We want to keep it safe, efficient, effective communications. We don't want all the bells and whistles that go with it. And of course they throw those in. So it's up to us to identify those and say, yeah, that's great, but not needed. Obviously we want to build a system that's going to be functional for the town of Berlin, not for a city to walk in and, be able to communicate on our system. It's much more complex than I originally thought, because there's multiple devices involved. There's multiple graded devices. The only one I like right now is a $14,000 option, where we basically have a computer screen up front in the admin's office that tells us of any failures or any faults. It's almost like your dashboard in your car, which we don't need it, but it is a $14,000 option, and we will avoid what just happened to us, where we had no repeaters on Taylor Road and nobody had any idea because all the lights were green. So everybody says, oh, it's working. If the lights are green, it's good to go. But this one little option of $14,000 will actually, do a diagnostics check and allow that whatever radio company we go with during their warranty, be able to monitor our system for its effectiveness.
Are you looking for a specific time frame-ish?
I would have done it 5 years ago if I had my stuff. But I'm hoping. I know we got Chief Clark until December 30th, somewhere around there. So I'm hoping that this is all set in stone and ready to go. And before he leaves, I mean, there's going to be a big lead out time. Right now, I mean, it took us 8 months to get in a mobile radio. Repeaters are somewhere around the 6-month mark. If we said yes tomorrow, it's about 6 months for equipment to potentially arrive.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that.
I'm seeing similar lead times for any sort of networking type equipment.
Yeah. That's also lining up the fiber optic companies as well. We want to make sure we get the fiber optics in at almost the same time. But like I said, we'll work with the vendors. We're up to 3 vendors now, and we'll work with them and get the best possible solution for the town at the best price possible.
Cool. All right. Keep us posted. I could make a pithy comment, but I won't, about money owed to us that could easily cover this, but I won't make that comment. Could we break if Chief is done? Margaret, do you have anything?
I don't have anything to add. Let's see, under the TA report, we'll be discussing the opioid settlement agreement that needs to be submitted to the AG's office. That would tie more into things that Victoria would do as far as education and support.
Okay, and perfect segue. Thank you, Margaret. If we could bring, she's already here, up to the front. Hello, Victoria.
Hi, everybody.
How are you? Nice to see you.
Nice to see everybody.
All right, Victoria, we're going to turn it over to you.
All right. Well, shock. I have a PowerPoint. So I figured, why not?
Victoria, do you secretly own stock in Microsoft? Just ask.
No, but I wish I did.
Yeah. All righty.
All right. So let's just do this. So as Chief Shartner had been alluding to, we are working to dress more for a drug-free community partnership. So basically the way that this is working is that back in 1997, the White House released federal funding that was an option for municipalities. And it's really focusing on communities working together and using local resources that are already in place to help meet the needs for any drug use and any substance abuse problems. Because the thought is you can't have a blanket solution to such a specific problem. So they are offering $125,000 for 5 years of funding, and they focus on 12 different sectors of which that you can qualify for funding. So these can include, youth, and they can include adults, different high risk, like LGBTQ community, I believe, and you know, certain populations that are at high risk for drug use. And attached is the link that gives us more detail. Why is really this drug use community like program really needed? And the big reason is that drug use has really skyrocketed, especially among opiate use. If you look at numbers for the past decade, if not the past 15, 20 years, it's just skyrocketed. The amount of legal prescriptions that were prescribed led to a lot of addiction, and unfortunately led to now people trying to get their, trying to then use other substances to try to fill in that void. And it's well known that drug use and mental health issues go together. They're kind of like peanut butter and jelly. That usually, if you have a substance abuse problem, there's usually a mental health issue component attached to it. And it can be a myriad of different disorders. It could be a myriad of different situations and circumstances, but the link is there. This problem is nationwide, and it's honestly worldwide, depending again on the substance and the, you know, where you're located. And unfortunately, COVID, like everything else, just basically exacerbated a problem that was already there and not really talked about. So in general, when you look at substance abuse, drug issues, mental health issues, there's 3 different ways that you can address the problem. So the first one here is micro. So micro is really looking at something at the individual level. So it's looking at the particular person, the particular circumstances, situations, things of that nature. And, you know, for our case, the town could actually be part of the micro solution because it's what we can really control, what, you know, what directly we can impact. A meso approach is looking at more things like regionally. So any regional correlations or any anything even that like the state could really do, that would really be looking at it through a meso. Macro is just basically federal level up, things that again, you know, looking at it from big picture. So in general, what we're doing in Berlin is, you know, we have a few different options for our services. As of right now, we're doing the DARE program at schools. It's helpful. It's getting education out there. There's also, you know, myself as well as public safety between fire and police. You know, we are working to try to address these calls as they come in. I'm going to be doing more and more collaboration with public safety, but I mean, there have been calls already where, you know, I'll get picked, my brain will get picked just to see, you know, how are we handling the situation. And as Chief Shartner had mentioned as well, funding for the Recovery Coach program, again, is very helpful because if we can help address somebody who's, you know, in the beginning stages of detox or who is in that moment where they are really looking for getting treatment, you know, you have kind of a golden window where you can work to try to get somebody into treatment. So that is really important. In general, we're also doing case management and education. So this is the crisis intervention training that Chief had mentioned, as well as some psychological first aid. I will be attending both of those classes as well. I'm taking psychological first aid at the end of the month, and then I'll be taking crisis intervention training in June. And then also too, we're trying to look and seek out grants and training opportunities in addition to what we already are aware of. As Chief mentioned, we have Open Sky that is doing their CIT training and response, as well as specific funding sources from DPH as well as DMH. And then finally, as well, another option that we have come to know about is through Neshoba Boards of Health. So they are basically doing a project with AIDS Project Worcester and with Department of Public Health, which they are trying, it's basically free funding, and it allows to have us to get a mobile clinic that would help service the town of Berlin, as well as several other communities throughout the state. This clinic itself has the capacity to do some testing for those who, you know, may be under the influence, and also to make sure that they are, you know, getting appropriate treatment. It's case management. It's helping them, again, get the resources right away to make sure that they can get the treatment that they need to get them on the path to recovery. It's the naloxone or Narcan. They would have their own stash of it, and they would be doing a syringe services program. So the not as politically nice way of saying it, it's a clean needle exchange program. And research has kind of showed us that, you know, while it is, you know, a jarring program maybe to think about, it does help to prevent any secondary disease such as HIV, hepatitis, and it does, you know, prevent any improper disposal of set tools, set syringes. And then also too, you know, it's helping us to collaborate with other cities and towns in, you know, in their region as well as our region too, because this is not a problem that is just for the town of Berlin. This is a problem that is everywhere. There's nowhere that is not dealing with mental health and substance abuse. And if we can attack this, you know, obviously from a, you know, Berlin standpoint, but if we can also attack this in a way that we can use all of the resources and not everybody has to reinvent the wheel, it does allow us to effectively and, you know, very succinctly get people what they need, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. That's it.
So Victoria, are there any possibilities? I mean, what's Clinton, Hudson, Marlboro, Boylston, West Boylston? Do you know what they're doing now? Is there any opportunity for us to work with them, piggyback with them?
I do think that there may be some opportunity going forward. I know Chief knows quite a bit about, you know, Clinton, and he does know some of the police chiefs there as well. I think it honestly is worth us having a conversation with the towns there as well. I know Lancaster is looking to hire somebody that is also doing kind of like what I'm doing, that's doing, you know, that is a social worker and that can do some work with the social services sides. Unfortunately, you know, my expertise and my training is not always readily available for municipalities. And because of that, you know, a lot of times other towns may be relying on agencies. Like, for example, I can tell you in my field, like we have agencies that we use for crisis, basically for mental health crises, which is Community Health Link out of Leominster. But there are also other mental health agencies that these towns may contract with, but I can tell you again from my experience that these are not, you know, the best paying jobs for, you know, social workers and mental health professionals. So there's a ton of turnaround and there's just not enough coverage from these companies to then meet the needs of the towns. So that's why, you know, I do think that a lot of them have tried to either recruit social workers or they've been trying to get, you know, trying to see if there have been other agencies that they could work with, but it's not something that has been readily available for every single, you know, municipality. You do see it more and more, like I have seen it more and more that towns are looking to hire social workers or looking to hire mental health professionals because they do realize that these problems are not just one size fits all and that they are very complex and that you need somebody who knows, you know, the mental health background of it to really address it. Because I mean, you know, having a case manager is great, having somebody with resources is great, but again, when you're dealing with a particular situation, you know, it can be very overwhelming very quickly. So I'm glad that, you know, it seems like, again, especially with COVID, because the state and federal funding has recognized the need for social services, I think more and more towns are starting to pursue it with ARPA funding. I do sit in a regional council on aging directors meeting, and a lot of them, you know, I don't think that they're necessarily where Berlin is at, but a lot of them now are talking about expanding, you know, even a part-time social worker for their towns, which again, you know, we're ahead of the game. So yay. But yeah. So
I just, may I just mention something? So again, we're going to be getting to the opioid settlement agreement. And that Berlin, if the board agrees, Berlin will sign an agreement onto, and we'll be getting a small amount of funding, a portion of the funding the state gets from the settlement agreement with the large pharmaceuticals for opioid use disorder. And the conditions of receiving the funds are really geared toward treatment and education and support for those affected by opioid use disorder and their families. So I think this all ties in, it's just my observation. I think this all ties in very nicely together. Thank you for the presentation, Victoria.
My pleasure, as always. And I mean, I think the good news too is that, you know, I think for a long time, a lot of cities and towns just did not want to talk about mental health. They didn't want to talk about substance abuse because it's so taboo. But the reality is if you're not if you're basically just waiting, you're already behind the 8 ball. You need to be proactive. You need to be doing things to help address these problems now, because it's only going to get worse if you don't. And I think at this point, you know, we are taking the right steps. You know, is it perfect? Of course not. You know, is it ever going to be perfect? No. But, you know, having even just, you know, the baby steps that we've been taking to address mental health and to address substance abuse, it's going to help us in the long run, because at least now, you know, we can have protocol and procedures in place where we didn't have them previously, because that's really the you know, the big challenge too, is that you can't fix something, you can't change something if nothing's there to begin with. So at least now, like, we're working towards that. And yes, you know, of course it's going to need revisions and it's going to need tweaking as time comes, but something is better than nothing to start.
Agreed. What's up, Chris?
So I guess I would ask Chief Shartner, is the DARE program still in the schools?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
As long as Officer Golding's with us, that program will keep on going. And as long as we can keep on training officers in the future, you know, I've been part of that program, you know, almost 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in one way or another, been part of the program, whether it was when I was a cadet, in college, helping out Officer Goody over in Lancaster, you know, to even going down and see the kids at our school now. It's definitely a phenomenal program. I don't know why it lost its steam, and I'm glad that Berlin's always kept it.
Yeah, I had heard there were going to be either changes or they were going to drop it, but I'm glad to hear that, you know, Berlin has still got it in place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Questions, thoughts?
No, and I have been talking with the area chiefs. We're trying to collaborate and get together. The biggest issue is the workforce. There's not enough clinicians out there. And, you know, I know it's a couple of neighboring towns share a clinician that got promoted within our company that they contracted with. Now they're running without a clinician. Even though they have the funding for the program, they don't have a clinician because the girl was promoted and they can't replace her yet. So, you know, I mean, I think ideally we'd get 2, if not 3 other towns involved and have 2 to 3 full-time clinicians available to us, you know, where we share our services amongst the towns. You know, I mean, Victoria can't be on 24/7, you know, I mean, you know, her phone's on, I have her phone number, you know, we utilized her this past Friday. You know, we were at the end of what we could do and had no idea what else we can do. And just bringing basically a civilian to the scene, Victoria was able to facilitate services for her. You know.
Very nice.
Thank you, Victoria.
Absolutely.
Glad to hear you working together.
What are next steps? Is there anything that you need from us that we can do? Support, letters?
But I think the biggest thing is just getting moving forward. I mean, we're trying to get Victoria moved up to our lobby. We want to put her in that room that we have out front in between police and fire and give her full access to both sides of the building so that everybody's accustomed to her behavior and build up a better rapport. And we really need to start utilizing our services. I mean, what we spent between 3 of us spent probably a total of 6 hours time on, Victoria had done in about an hour and a half. So, you know, that was on the second round. I called Victoria and said, can I pick you up out front and take you somewhere? And brought her down to the scene and she took care of it. So
awesome.
Now, see, normally my husband would not like me going into strange cars with men, but you know, but for this case, you know, we were good to go.
Did you get to use the lights? Well, here's the big question, Victoria. Did Eric make you sit in the front or the back?
Oh, I got the front, man.
Okay. All right.
It was a Chevy Volt. There was no sitting in the back seat. Yeah.
I mean, I could have been like, you know, tied to the trunk, I guess, but you know, no,
Good.
Thankfully.
Vacation up on the roof. All right. Scott, questions? Thoughts, comments?
As someone who works for a social service agency that does substance abuse and mental health services, I can tell you we're having a hard time hiring and filling the positions as well. And so it's not just municipalities that are having that problem.
Well,
I mean,
I can tell you that, so March was Social Work Awareness Month. And it's funny because, you know, everybody says that, you know, when you go into being a social worker, like you clearly aren't doing it for the money, because it's basically a ton of hours, no pay. And it just like the burnout rates are just through the roof. And I have a lot of friends in the field, and they're all, you know, like we're all hurting in some ways, just because, you know, you go into this field and you do what you need to do, but it's just, it's extremely high rates of burnout. And I mean, you know, we could all write a book and be very wealthy about the stuff we've seen. And unfortunately, I think now society is starting to recognize the work that's done. And people, I think, are now really starting to realize like, oh boy, we're going to be, you know, up a creek without a paddle without this work being done. But I mean, still progress.
One more thing,
I mean,
it's one more big thing the COVID pandemic has highlighted, you know, and has exacerbated, really.
Yeah.
There's also structural things that make it hard for non-well-off families to get into social work, and that you need to do an internship, which is sometimes almost a year long at no pay. And I don't know many people who can go a year or two without pay and still get through. And so not only is there not a lot of big pay at the far end, there's no pay for the first period of time. And I have a big soapbox about unpaid internships and how that's a barrier to getting more diversity into fields. But social work is one of them, but it's huge. You know, you get a master's degree and 2 years of unpayment before you can get your license.
Well, and as I said, Victoria, I don't know how you found us, but Berlin is beyond grateful that you're here. And, you know, now that you are joining forces with Chief Shartner and his crew and Chief Clark and his crew, please keep us posted. Let us know when you want to come back and give us an update, and we'll be sure to slap you on a calendar.
We can do that.
Thank you for everything that you both are doing. Appreciate it.
Our
and
pleasure.
The families that you help, I'm sure appreciate it as well.
Most days.
Cool.
I'm kidding.
Most days. All right. Well, thank you both. If there's nothing else, we'll let you scoot and enjoy your Monday evening.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye, you two.
Bye-bye.
All right, so we are down to the TA 1 and 2 report.
Okay, again, I'll start, and if June has anything to add, please, June, chime in. All right, so I'm going to actually start, again, back to the segue. I'm going to start with the Opioid Settlement Agreement. You'll recall that several months ago, we submitted a participation form in the opioid settlement. So now the Attorney General's office is asking communities to actually submit the actual agreement. This is the form that the select board's responsible for signing and that we'd submit. This only requires the chair's signature, and I hope that you've each had a chance to look over the settlement agreement. There's no question in my mind that that DLS or DOR is going to provide guidelines for accounting for the funds that come in. But I also am guessing that Berlin is not going to be getting a huge share of the money. We'll get something, and anything will help. But my recommendation is that the select board vote to sign the agreement, and so we can get this submitted to the Attorney General's office. Just as an aside, we got notice from the DLS on March 28th that the AG's office wanted it submitted on March 31st. So I replied back to them and said, look, board's meeting tonight, please give us till Tuesday. And they said, fine. So
is there a motion on the table for us to go forth with this, or any further discussion?
I'm fine going forth with it. I also move.
Second.
And allow the chair to sign. Is that what I'm supposed to say as part of this?
Sure.
Yeah.
And I'll second that.
All right, so Stone eye?
Hawkins eye.
Keefe eye.
great.
All right, Mary,
Thank
you can let me know when both documents are ready. I'll swing through.
Okay, a few small updates, and then, well, I've got a few updates. Okay, first of all, trying to get on some of the procurements that have been on hold. I've been in communication with B2Q, their energy service provider, regarding energy management work at the town offices. That would be the installation of an efficient rooftop air handler to replace the RTU-1 that's been that the town meeting has appropriated money for. So I'm working on getting the prevailing wage request for that. get it out to them. They're going to send us a proposal, but he has forewarned me that the lead time is several months out for air handler replacements. So there you have it. And he's also given some advice on tying that project to the roof replacement. He believes that they should both be done at the same time, and he's willing to communicate with any roofing company, the roofing company that's chosen to do that work. Maddie Vandenboom has contacted me. She's actually preparing the MVP grant application that's due in I think it's the middle of May or early May. She's looking for input on the MVP grant. So that would be the application for the MVP grant in addition to the land grant that she's worked on. And then I understand that 19 Carter is going to be having music performances again in the upcoming summer season. They'll have a summer music series. I think that, my understanding is that they have changed, I think they've changed day and times, and they're going to be less frequent. So the time has come for me to prepare a letter to the neighbors of 19 Carter, just instructing them to call the police in real time if there is an issue related to noise, traffic safety, or pedestrian safety. So I'm preparing that. The Recreation Committee has voted to move forward with procuring the courts project as a package rather than breaking it up into pieces. They weren't really sure how they wanted to proceed before, but I guess the other night they voted to proceed as a full package. So I'm preparing that. I'm preparing that RFP now, and hopefully we'll get that issued in the next month, and then we'll see what prices come back at. I also emailed Julie Lee, the chair of the Recreation Committee, this morning regarding, oh, I'm sorry, this is actually going to come up under old business, but I might as well inform you now, regarding the field use fees. I did do a little digging and pulled up some field use fees from a few of our surrounding towns, Boylston, Bolton, and Clinton, and asked her to take a look at them and really think about the possibility of increasing the field usage fees in order to better cover the town's costs associated with use of the athletic fields, particularly the fertilizing of the athletic fields to allow them to be a playable surface. So I am waiting to hear back from Julie on that. So when it comes to old business tonight, I guess that's going to be my comment there.
Yeah. Okay.
Fred Cummings has notified me that he does need to deficit spend the FY22 snow and expense line. He submitted a request for $61,370.80. I'm under the Act. My comfort level is at up to $50,000 because it specifically says that as far as my authorizing ability in the Act. So I authorized him to deficit spend up to $50,000, but it also allows him to request further deficit spending should he need to after he depletes the currently authorized amounts. So my recommendation is for town meeting is going to be to fund this $50,000, not from an appropriation transfer, because that's a significant amount of money, but to fund it from free cash. So I'm glad that that article is actually a placeholder on the draft warrant. June and I are working with the Personnel Committee still working on personnel policy updates. And so I made a recommendation to personnel last week that we try to break up the review and recommendations into more bite-sized pieces rather than taking the entire policy manual as a whole. And one of the first policies that we're all going to be looking at and going over is the electronic communications and computer usage policy. That goes back, I think it's a 2011 policy, so you can imagine how much has happened in the past 11 years technology-wise. So I'm sure there's going to be updates there. And Sandy from HRS, who did the draft policy manual for us, provided a draft policy that we can also work from. So at the next Personnel Committee meeting, we're going to be talking about that. And then lastly, oh, no, that's it. I think that's it. Those are the big things. Yes.
Wow.
Doing
Quite
what
a lot.
I
G2, you got anything?
No, she just made me tired just listening to her.
Me too.
Oh, God.
Welcome back, Margaret.
Oh. Thank you.
All right. Any questions for Margaret or June?
That's about it.
Okay. All right. So skipping down the agenda. So the recreation fees. So Margaret, do we want to put this on the agenda for next week? We'll skip over it until Julie gets back to you.
Yeah, I suggest doing that. I do think it's worth them taking a look at the fees again, just to maybe make some adjustments. In the email, I also explained the, the purpose of the revolving fund. And so hopefully they're able to kind of tie it all together. So yes, next meeting.
Okay. All right. Any questions, comments, Scott, Chris?
No.
I thought our fees were decent for what our fields are. I mean, I think we don't have as good a field as some of those surrounding towns. And so having our fees a little bit lower, it's one of those catch-22s. We can't always charge as much as everyone's because our fields aren't as good, but because we don't have the money, because we don't charge as much, we can't make our fields as good. And we might try to find a way sort of, there might be a way out of that cycle at some point.
Agreed. Definitely agreed.
That is a good point. It is a good point, but we still have to pay we want to upgrade the fields. We have to pay for that as well. So yeah, even if it's just a modest adjustment.
All right. So down to in old business, our annual town meeting warrant, final review, vote to sign, direct the mailing. Margaret, I noticed that there were quite a few emails going back and forth today. And it was funny. I started reading it and I'm like, oh, it's just a word. Oh, it's a couple words. It was a page. So, I know Carolyn or Conservation had written back and had some concerns about it. So
my big question for the board tonight really is, while there have been some edits that you saw town council's red line version with their comments, they are looking at the possibility of combining the 3 land acquisition articles into a single combined article. And at this point, I just need to know what the board's thoughts are on that. I have asked Sharon at KP to go ahead and draft the combined article as they would like it, but ultimately it's up to the board if you want to do 3 separate articles or if you want to do a single article.
I would love to have one article, just because I've always thought the third article that approves the purchase is, because of legal needs, I think worded confusingly that will cause more problems on the floor than it needs to, because it always talks about the need to borrow, which we're not borrowing anything. It's because we're buying the land, we have to have some of that canned language. And I think anything that removes some of that confusion would be great. And I think it's also true that if one passes, others are going to pass, or if the first one fails, they're all going to fail. I don't think the 3 of them are going to go separate directions, because really they can't. If one of them fails, they all go down anyway. So I'm fine with them as one agenda item. I prefer them as one agenda item.
I agree. I would like to see just one, if it works, that everything can be included in it.
And I do like, Margaret, I don't know if it was you or if it was Conservation that, finally after a few times of ask, it was here's the cost, here's what we have last year, this year, and here's what we need. Because I agree with Scott. When I read only the third one, it was like, the town's going to borrow $1.25 million. And I'm like, what?
Right.
What?
Yes. Excellent point. And I thought Carolyn did a good job when she sent back the revised summary. Right. So I would actually plug that in under town council's combined article. And I think that would explain it all.
Because I think if the 3 of us, if Meg and I are confused and we've been like part of it the whole time, people who have not seen it before will be more confused, and we'll spend more time at town meeting explaining that really is, I think, unneeded time at town meeting, because it's not substantive as much as, oh yes, you're right, because of the legal stuff we had to say.
Yeah, and interestingly, they did add, town council added a section on that draft article that requires the grant funding from a land grant or any grant to go back to the general fund in free cash first, and then to CPA, so they were able to manage that. So, all right, I'll make sure that she proceeds with that. So what I would ask the board to do is vote to sign the warrant, subject to town council's final review and comments, finalizing the warrant, and then direct the printing and mailing of the warrant and finance committee's recommended budget.
I would make that motion. So moved.
I would second it.
All right. And everybody, really thank you for all the work that you've put on this. I know that it hasn't been easy. So, oh, Mary's got a question. Yes, ma'am.
Before it's signed.
What's that?
What is that?
And signing. So not just posting, but not
Signing.
just mailing it. You mean also having the board come in and signing it?
Oh, signing it would be first. Yes. Vote to sign. Yes.
Yep. Okay. So we got a motion and a second. Stone eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
All right,
Thank
Mary,
you.
there's your third one to let us know when it's ready for all of us, and we'll all wander on down in. All right.
June.
June.
So-
I have to thank
June.
June for her feedback on it, and also for spending a lot of time with the CPA chair to finalize those numbers.
I just have a quick question. We are still planning on sending out town reports separately from the warrant, correct?
No, we're not
Well,
sending annual town reports.
We're printing them separate from the town reports, but we're not mailing the
Yes,
town reports.
because I just wanted to confirm that, because there was talk about combining them, and I just wanted to make sure that we're doing the town report and that will be done, and then it's just the warrant process that's going to be printed and mailed out to everybody, right? Okay.
The town report books will be made available at town meeting for anyone who's interested in taking them as well. And they'll be made available around town according to the bylaw.
Just wanted to confirm.
Awesome. Yay. All right. Next up, well, still talking town report, annual town report update. Last one I saw was an email. Was it finance? Who's missing? June, did you reach out to them?
Finance, yep, finance has actually been submitted, and Lori, I believe he has it.
So we are good to go.
I think
Mary, which departments are still outstanding? That
Traffic
might need to be
safety.
addenda.
Who's dinging?
Yeah, who-
Scott.
Please, sorry. That's the 8 o'clock bell.
All right.
And I've got the
Cheers.
train going by. When the windows open in a couple weeks, you'll hear it. So we'll be back on schedule.
All right. The only committee is the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee, if they're going to do one. And if not, I've already sent out a draft in memoriam. So I think we're really close to the end.
Oh, wow, good.
So do you have an idea, or you can talk about, Margaret and June, what number you'd like printed so that we could send the book? Actually, maybe the board wants to approve it next week. I think it's close enough that the board could possibly review it next week.
I think that would be a good idea. Peg, can we put that on the agenda for next week? Do a final, good.
Yep, Mary, if you want to, I know you get in there before I do. I usually do it at the end of the meeting, but if you want to get in and drop it on next agenda, that would be awesome. This way we've got it. All right. Yay. All right. Everyone's favorite topic, ARPA project list, idea project list, potential removal of items. And I have one to throw at you that I stumbled on this weekend. So can I share my one that I stumbled on this weekend?
Sure.
Sure.
Stop laughing, you
What'd
two.
you find this weekend?
I think we should really say that we're lowering them to the bottom of the list.
Yes, we are not removing them. We will do correct. We will do the same thing. We'll put like a
I'm
strike
thinking what
through
I'm
them.
planning on removing, but we can debate when we get to them whether we'll remove them.
All right, so here's something that I wanted to toss at you. So I was trolling the MMA org website because I wanted to see how many other towns out there were looking for town administrators and town managers and what we'd be up against. Well, don't I roll across an ARPA project manager for the city of Beverly. Now I know that Beverly is probably going to receive a crap ton more money than Berlin is. But on the job description, and I just wrote a few things down, it said that they would work with reporting, which would probably take a lot off June and Amy's plate that they already don't have. They work with vendors, they do the research. Scott, this kind of gets back to one of your points of if people are coming forth with ideas but really don't have the time or the expertise to submit to capital planning, you've got a resource there that they would look at the statutory requirements, that they would do the monitoring, they would do procurement. So again, up for discussion, wanted to toss it out there. Beverly is looking for someone between 65 and 80 to do all that work. So probably depending upon—
I'm assuming thousands and not age.
Yeah, that is correct. That is correct. Comma 000.
Age discrimination, Scott.
That's right. Don't forget, Peg's driving the COA bus in a couple of years, so get on. But I didn't know, I mean, you know, if you look at the time that June Amy would spend, and our new TA, you know, bless his or her soul, coming into that, I don't know if it would be responsible for us to look at it, discuss it, maybe talk to personnel, you know, Margaret, you know, especially June. I know that there's a lot of reporting that you guys are going to do. So just wanted to throw it out there for food for thought, not asking for a yes, not asking for a no. We can definitely talk about it. Mary's got her hand up.
Well, only because in Beverly's ad, they say that they're getting 12 million. So if you want to cut it down to a 12th, you'd say that Berlin in like dollars would want to spend up to $5,000 on assistance with wrangling that, or it's worth 5,000 if you believe that that's true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, I don't know. I know that we have 300 and some odd thousand now. We're going to be getting maybe another 600,000 some odd. You know, I just don't know, you know, with all the reports and projects and who's going to be responsible for it.
So are you adding to the list?
Hey, I took off 10. I took off 10 last week. I can add.
I think we're going to regularly add to the list as we come up with good ideas.
Yeah.
I think sometimes good ideas don't find the best timing, and I would hate to pass on a good idea. This, as Peg is right, is just going to take a chunk of work to pull it all together and report on it. I mean, well, I don't think I would vote today to spend $85,000 on it. I don't think Peg is even either. So yeah. I think, you know, that recognizing, you know, CPA sets aside a percentage for administrative costs. You know, we could easily decide a percentage of this as a percent for administrative costs, and then figure out how that gets allocated. It could be existing staff add a few hours. It could be someone new from the outside.
I know, I was just confused when we started this conversation. I thought it was, you know, moving to the bottom of the list.
Come on, Chris, you know how I think. We start here and then we go over here and then we back up and then maybe back there. So, you know, again, it was just one of those, I wasn't looking for that. It was just there at the top of the list. And I went, well, let me write it down on a piece of paper so that I could bring it up this evening. All right. So
you want to go down the projects one by one? How? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Do you want me to just?
Go ahead.
Mary, can you put up?
I thought we were limited to like 5 or 6 that we want to just pull and move to the bottom.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because I know that we won't spend a lot of time on this, but enough.
We do spend a lot of time on this.
Right. And and from my standpoint, I don't think we get any closer to doing any of these. And so I try to find every week a different way to approach to somehow get someday some of these things moving forward. But if to make the list shorter helps. I mean, I think the lines 18 through 22, which were all replace lost revenue, is not a legal use of the funds, and all should just be deleted from the list.
And I'd have to know what those 18.
This is the lost 1870 revenue.
What list are you on? Are you using the one that?
Sorry, I'm using my old copy of it that I've not rearranged too much.
All right, this is. Let me share.
I wanted to try to edit live time if you're going to make a lot of edits. Peg, do you feel like editing it?
Well, I can just put strike throughs through them for now, Mary, and then I can.
And Peg's is clearly a spreadsheet on her computer, not the Google Doc version. But we're still there. So lines, 19, 20, 21, and 22, which are replaced lost revenue, are not legal uses of the funds. It's the reason we got the funds, but I don't think those need to be on the spreadsheet. I also think line 18, the transmission loader repairs, has already been done and can be removed from the spreadsheet.
That came from an old list the administrative finance team had put together.
So this one as well?
18 through 22.
18 through 22, yep.
Okay, got them. Yep.
I also think line 16 is a town meeting warrant article already, and so it doesn't need to be on this list.
I'm going to ask June, if you need to weigh in on any of these, please just weigh in.
Okay. All right. So strike through this one as well.
Yes.
Okay. Done.
If you scroll down, I have lots of comments about different places, but if you scroll down to like 37, the mid 30s, looks like yours is pretty close to mine anyway. So we'll see. They're both, yes. And so Bullard House overall, 160,000, go up like 3 or 4 lines. So that 160,000 is one line that is duplicative of the 2 lines below it. And so I think line 31 can just go away because 32 and 33 represent it in its entirety.
Okay, and 32 is a town meeting warrant article.
I don't believe 32. I think 33 is a town warrant article.
They're looking to do the architectural work in one of the CPA articles.
Right, so they've asked for 100,000 where they have a $160,000 need. And so you can pick how you want to word that. I was just going to let those sit for now. Okay. So I was just referring that 31 is at least duplicative of that, and 32, 33 come close but don't match perfectly to town meeting warrant articles. I think line 42 is just another way of saying, at least in mine it's 42. So I have one, Historic Society Matching Fund Grant is what this subject line says. Scroll.
No.
36.
Oh,
I was just going to say, I thought that was the one we were just
30, yeah.
36?
Yes, 36. That is also a duplicative of the ones above. The between the 160 and the 100, a match and theory matching 100 from the stage and the 284 covers everything that is on the current reports for the Bullard House. But we can at least remove some of those as duplicative.
Any others? I've got my list too. Chris, I'll go after you.
Why don't you do this? Because my others are not as, I think, clearly straightforward, should potentially go away as some of the others.
All right. Chris, you got any?
Well, Scott touched on number 36.
Yep.
Historical Society Matching Grant Funds. I didn't know whether, I know contributing to the Special Education Reserve Fund could be an annual give.
We can't put money into a stabilization fund.
Right, we can't put money into a stabilization fund. So
so can we?
I missed that one. So 11 needs to go away as well. You're right.
Yeah. Did you cross off resetting the gravestones, Peg?
I took mine off because it was a duplicative of somebody else. So we can take that off. I think, Chris, that's on my list to take off.
Yeah, 51, I think, is the one that I said may need to go.
Okay. Scroll down. Yep. Yeah, to me, this is cemeteries, and there's certainly grants out there. I've found them. So, yeah, I don't think that this is us. That's not our thing. Okay.
Okay. And I'm sorry if I do not know what number 62 is.
Currently a labyrinth. Oh. So that's one of those things that's like, it's a circle. It's very meditative. You just kind of walk.
Is this something that goes at South Common? This is, I have no idea.
This is a resident of town who I happen to know,
right,
who thinks the town would be better off if somewhere on town properties, we built a meditative labyrinth as a sort of mental health improvement to the town.
Do it right at the town offices.
You bet. Maya Grant. Maya Grant.
Kidding.
Second floor town offices.
Well, how is a labyrinth meditative? I don't get it.
There's a bar.
When you're walking, your deep thoughts, it's quiet. Generally, other people are out there with you. Quiet, introspection.
We're not talking like giant hedge ones. We're talking about sort of a stone path and a pattern that you sort of follow and think as you go. We have one in our neighborhood.
Okay, well,
Maybe you have to go visit, Chris, to understand it.
All right.
Well, I
So
can
do you want
find
me
other
to-
ways to meditate, I guess.
All right.
I would be fine at least moving that to a lower priority.
Yep.
Well, that's what I thought we were doing.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Unless, of course, there were actual deletions.
No, they're not deletions. We're going to shove them down to the end of the list. And then if money or time allows, and one of those are really good ones, we'll pop them back up. But
Okay.
Okay. What else you got?
The COVID
Well,
mortgages is, oh, I'm sorry, never mind. This is a board's discussion. I'm going to sit back.
Okay. So the other thing that I just have not, this is the first time I'm hearing about this need is number 67, the veteran tribute pole banners. I just wasn't sure, exactly what it was, and I had never heard of it before as a need.
Yeah. I don't think it's a need. I think it's a really neat thing. I've seen this around other towns. I find them fascinating when I drive around other towns and I look at them and I look for last names that happen to be my family tree. But this is sort of on telephone poles around town, pictures of veterans from that town that have passed away or died in foreign wars, and celebrating them. And they usually go up around Memorial Day and stay up until Veterans Day.
Those
nice,
are fabulous.
Okay. Then
they are-
because I didn't know what they are.
No, they are fabulous. And actually, this had come up several months back where I brought it to the board, and I had talked to, who meets over on the building that Chris just found out where it is, where Girl Scouts used to be on Lincoln Street, where the vets meet, the American veterans.
Lincoln
Street.
So I had reached out, those banners, I reached out to neighboring towns. They run anywhere between $300 to $500 per banner. But then here's the catch. You need to have someone who's willing to call all the people. And do you say it's only open to people who were born in Berlin? Do you open it to people who moved to Berlin? A lot of families, depending upon who you talk to, maybe weren't in support of their loved one going and not coming home from a war. So again, it's absolutely awesome. Hudson, I think, does it. Westboro, I think, does it. There's other towns.
Hudson also has it too.
Yeah, but there's a lot of work behind it. It's just not a banner with a pole that highway needs to put up and put down.
Right.
There are also N-grid poles.
They're what?
They're National Grid poles.
Oh,
Yeah, they're on National Grid poles.
yep. Right.
So
Most
I
of the
didn't
work is
know
actually
whether,
organizing them as opposed to actually putting them up is the easy part.
Yeah.
so there may be a lot of work involved
Yep.
to do this. So maybe it is one that will just go to the bottom of the list.
Yep. I'll move them all down.
Okay,
Right.
that's all I have.
All right. So I'm going to go from the bottom up, or the bottom kind of sort of up. That one's okay. So this one here, as much as I would love to see National Lumber purchased and turned into a community center or a senior center,
It's also not currently for sale.
Correct.
And it's also part of the Village Center study, which hopefully will be finalized soon. We can look at the options there.
Right. The Wheeler Family Farm, I didn't know if that meant Ruth Wheeler or Buddy Wheeler, but still that is a giant chunk of land, whichever one you're talking to. So
it's the one across the street from the Eco Village. Is one he's
so that's
talking about.
Ruth Wheeler. That's Ruth and Henry Wheeler.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sort of between where I'm sitting and where Bob Blair is probably currently sitting.
Okay. All right. So that one, these I left because Margaret, I think all these kind of sort of tie into Beth.
Yeah.
Improve the fire ponds. I know that this had come up a couple times, and Chief Clark had voiced his concern that, yeah, maybe you could use the ponds, but you don't know what's in the ponds, and then you don't know what damage and what sludge and what grossness ends up going in the hoses.
Yeah, but those ponds are our water supply for our fire department.
Yeah.
You know what? It depends who you talk to, because the fire ponds, I've been told by a previous chief that they are not the responsibility of the fire department, that if you happen to have a pond in your yard, it's now your responsibility to make sure it's clean. I've heard that it's the fire fire will go in and clean it. So
yeah, way back when it actually used to be that the fire department kept up on the fire ponds.
Because the formal, I wouldn't strike through that one. I think that's still an important one to do. Just because, I mean, the formal fire ponds that have outlets built into them already to hook up our trucks. I'm not ready to say we should spend money on them today. I'm not ready to cut that one out.
All right. This one, yeah, I'm not touching it. What?
Love it.
Right. I was gonna say that's one of your. I think there's two lines that say this, and so at some point we should just combine the two lines together. Because
this
there's
one,
a line.
Yeah, library. That's enough. The road repairs. There's a couple on road repairs. I'm thinking this is just highway and whatever their schedule is, isn't it, Margaret? For them to be able to.
We have, if we're going by the evaluation criteria, we do already have two funding sources that fund the road repairs: Chapter 90 and the supplemental free cash that funds the hot top.
And I would encourage anyone who thinks they have a road that really is in need of repair just to report them to highway so they get up there.
Yeah.
Honestly, you don't know.
I would kill 63 as well.
We've got great roads compared to other towns.
Yeah. 63 is a great idea, but there's a state and federal program that's available in every county and has been for over a year for mortgages. So if anyone's having problems paying their utility bills or mortgages or rent because of COVID, RAFT is the type of program, and every county has a RAFT provider.
Okay. Library, we know it's its own. This one, whoops. This one to me, if it's emergency and things like that, this is a collective bargaining item here. I mean, there's no cost associated with it. And how do you just say emergency highway town employees here, you get extra money?
I think we can. I think this is a great use for this money. I agree that we have to be really careful about how it is worded and how it comes to it. My hesitation on this one is only just the amount of work it takes to figure out something that is fair and equitable and timely.
Yeah.
It could be very political too.
Yep. So you know what?
I agree. I agree that this isn't a mandatory subject. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just also want to add that this is not, well, from what I'm finding out on my end of things, this is not something that's easy to say, okay, you worked 40 hours this week. No. I believe you actually have to sit down and itemize when you actually were with the public is how they were wording it. So if you were on the road for 1 hour this day, then that would count. But the other 7 that you were in the building don't count.
Well, so we could decide as select board any rules we want on this. I agree that figure out something that we feel is fair and equitable for all the folks, both, what happened to people who started in 2021, what happened to someone who left in just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think it is fraught with all kinds of tough decisions that are no great answers on.
It's just, like I said, it's highly political. It's like, well, why didn't I get it? I don't want to pit one group against the other.
I wouldn't. If I did it, I would do every town employee who has been with us throughout the pandemic and pick a flat dollar amount and give everyone that full-time equivalent. So someone who works half-time gets half of that, and someone who gets quarter time gets a quarter, 3/4 expense. But and overtime doesn't count. It just but it also, I think just because I have that, it doesn't mean there's not a better way of doing it. I would love to do it. I just don't know how we get there.
What, Chris?
I just think it's going to be a nightmare.
So you know what?
You're not.
I won't fight. If the two of you want to pull it, I won't fight pulling it. I would like to do it, but I agree that this is not an easy, simple. This will take us a lot of time and energy to figure out the right way to do this.
Right, and
a lot of energy.
It is something that can be discussed in negotiations.
That's what I think too. Yeah.
Because there's another
people
one
I would give it to aren't necessarily union members.
Whoops. Oh, hello. Where'd you go?
These are worthy of discussions in negotiations. They are.
And the same with this one as well.
I thought this was a duplicative of the. I thought this was a duplicative of the previous line. So
yeah, and I think this one came in, and then this email came in about a week behind it.
They came from different sources. So
yep. All right. Going up.
I want to say, just adding that as town administrator and, you know, through the whole first year of COVID, having gone in every single day, I mean, there were people, I mean, some of our employees really were facing the public on a regular basis. Yeah. And several of our employees were coming into work every single day, day in and day out. So I just want to recognize all the dedication.
Everybody should be recognized that was working during COVID for the town.
Okay. So this one, I think conservation probably just put it on. I mean, there's already town stuff on it, so I'm gonna line that one. All right.
See, we're finding it much easier to reduce the list than we've heard to figure out the top. But with the
absolutely,
I think it'll make our next conversations easier. So
agreed. I could go either way with this one.
I think this at least. I was about to say stay for now because in my brain there's 3 categories: sort of remove from list, lower priority, and higher priority. Yep. But and at least I think stays for now.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Paving cemetery driveways. There's there's funding for that that's been appropriated. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough fund. I don't think enough funding to do all of it, but I am fine with that strike through.
But there's a mechanism to get it. Okay.
This one, buy a horse-drawn hearse.
I think that's cool. I think it's at least lower priority because we have to finish restoring the hearse house before we have a place to put it. But the idea is putting a period appropriate hearse inside the hearse house would be beyond cool.
Beyond cool, but not quite sure fiscally responsible.
Donations. How about through donations, we buy a horse-drawn hearse?
Yeah. All right, and then same with this one. Berlin doesn't own the hearse house.
But
it's not a town building.
There's talks to do it. It historically has been.
I know. We'll wait until that comes up on a discussion. I have thoughts about that one, but for now, I'm okay with strike throughing this one. Strike throughing, if that's a word. Okay.
Sure.
And then, whoopsie.
We're going to have the conversation again when the restoring the hearse house is on the list.
Yep. That'll be a good one. So definitely bring your popcorn for that one. All right. And then I think there's just a couple other ones. Oh, again, to me, this is a cemetery thing.
Oh, no, that was in response to
mine. That was in response to mine that
repurposing the water pump from the garden.
Yep.
Oh, I thought that. Okay, so this is just to cover that. Yeah, because I knew that they were in the process of doing this because the highway guys were asked to take the solar panels off the garden sheds. So this is just to actually finish that work, correct? I think that's what it's looking like.
I think it's to repurpose the actual the solar
and put it over with the water pump.
It's been removed. This is to re-add it.
Okay.
I know it's not to re-add it to the gardens, but to re-add it to one of the cemeteries. So
the cemeteries. Yep.
So the cemeteries have water for people who want to flower things.
All right. So this one is a.
Did you keep that cemetery one, or did you strike it?
She
left it.
She left it. Yep, she kept it. Yep.
Want me to strike through it? I can.
Honestly, this is something. Well, never mind. I'm not gonna. I won't chime in because
I think we should keep it. I think for today's crossing, it doesn't leave. I think we'll have other opportunities to remove it if it continues to fall down. The repaving one we did, the tree removal, I'd like to keep. It was one of my top priorities.
Yeah, this one, you know what? We have an arborist. Maybe we figure out a way to have Maddie go around and work with Fred to figure out what the true tree removal is, so we can leave this. The pedestrian crosswalk signs, these are the blinky signs next to the cemetery in the center of town. Fred did confirm that he has all the equipment to do it. Obviously, it's just highway time. So I didn't know if we had that. So guess what? This one comes out because it's there.
That was funded through the Shared Streets and Spaces program.
Yep. Sidewalks, I know that there's what, Margaret, you put it in there, I put it in there.
You have at least 3 of these.
Yeah.
All right,
so we should keep something that says sidewalks. We should make sure we don't cross all of them off, but yes.
If there's something that refers to complete streets, that would be, I think Yeah.
It might be up further. All right. Walking path between Northbrook and South Common. Nice to have, but
I don't know whether that would serve
the whole
enough
town.
residents. Yeah.
Well, every park doesn't serve all the residents. That does serve a population that typically doesn't get as much. I be careful what you wish for, because I think easy access between South Common and Northbrook Village might have other people walking through Northbrook Village on their way to softball games and basketball games and tennis games.
All right. Out, in?
I at least have it as a lower priority. I wouldn't remove it, but so in my universe of 3 layers, it definitely gets, it definitely is not in the top tier. Let's put it this way.
June?
Yeah, it's not the top.
That was part of the wellness trail that they were speaking of.
Which they funded once and never actually did. So.
Okay.
Well, I think it's because it came in way higher than what they had expected.
Yeah, very much
that
so.
could easily be.
Broadband service?
It is, I think, a very creative way of thinking about the use of the funds. I'm generally not in favor of it as a direction, because I don't like expanding government more in an area where there is private industry taking care of it. I personally think 5G will take care of this problem fairly nicely. When I don't like mentioning any vendor names, when cell companies as a whole can compete the high-speed internet to your house because they don't need wires.
The other possible funding source for this could be the infrastructure, the federal infrastructure funding, and they could be releasing money to study things like this. I don't know how much we
count as rural underserved. We do have high-speed broadband in this town, and I think we're about to have high-speed from 5G as well in this town. So we'll have 3 to 5 vendors providing us high-speed internet across town.
This one, whoops, dear Lord. I'm going to meet with building inspector guy. I'm horrible with names. Thank you.
And I looped in Fred on this as well.
Okay, yeah. You know what? I ran into Mary McKelk over the weekend, and she's thinking that it's truly just a lock. So if it's just the lock that's the issue, then I think it's going to be a lot cheaper than a door. But you know what? Again, I have no skinny. I have no information on it. Could be cheap, could be not. Yeah.
Right. I'd at least keep it on the list as a priority, because I think it's something that needs to be done. It might be done by the time we start doing more stuff, which is fine.
Yep.
Obviously a lower cost.
So in this whole section, there's several of mine here that could be worded sort of better, but yeah, you have one in the middle there, because the 41 and 42 there are really, we have trash all over this town and that is stored in our buildings. It's taking up tons of space. And somehow I think it would be really cool to spend some of this money hiring a company to bring in dumpsters and just haul some of this stuff away, because that takes care of our storage problems. It takes care of potentially mice and rat problems, and gives us more places to store things. That
there are places that do that, and you just have to point.
I know you just have to point to do something, but we can't be pushing any particular vendors.
1-800 college junk.
The hard part about it is what I might consider trash and junk, someone else might be considered something that's incredibly important to a project they're working on, or an incredible town heirloom, or just
some other stuff's junk,
or something that might have value on a secondary market. And I think the harder part is finding the staff time to have someone go through, and there could even be, I'm sure some of these companies that haul away trash could help us go through and go, oh my gosh, that is junk. Oh my gosh, I give you $500 for that, you know?
What about looking at it a different way, saying that, June is going to be the month where we're all going to look through the stuff we have and get rid of it if we don't need it.
So what, basically, if you don't respond, it goes?
Right. So this might be as much a select board goal as much as it is ARPA funding requests. I mean, it will take some money at some point, and it may be as ARPA, maybe, select board expenses. And that is also true. 43, I think it would be kind of neat to have the food pantry in the old highway barn, but I really think that that could easily be deferred to Peg, what was one of your top numbers, which is spending some money doing a facilities assessment and figuring out the best use of the buildings. And so that was an idea of mine on how to better use the building. But boy, someone came in and did an assessment and said, no, the food pantry would be a perfect for X space somewhere else. I'm not going to stand it that way. This is me saying that the building could be better used. So I think maybe you could cross all three of these that have my name on it off.
I like the idea of the trash cleanout, Scott. I won't lie. There really does need to be a purge.
Earth Day is the day where people walk around town. We can have employees to come in to walk around buildings.
You need to have the people that actually have the stuff in the building go through it.
Yep.
Well, the problem is there are some spaces in the building where the people who have the stuff there have not been in this town or worked for this town for 40 or 50 years.
Yeah.
Well, the then the departments themselves will probably be more willing to get rid of stuff if they.
Right.
Yeah.
I would be great if we just went around town, and I think town office is an exception to this rule, but the other buildings saying this room is filled of stuff for this group, and then have that group go, I have no idea that is there. Why is that? That's not our stuff. And then we can throw it all away.
Yeah, we actually have at least one room downstairs in the basement that's like that.
Yeah. Yeah, these buildings are nothing but a giant kitchen drawer for everyone's crap. All right.
Keep going.
All right, so the 1870, I copied you guys in on an email. I'm going to go to their meeting tomorrow. You know what? No one seems to know what needs to be done with the septic. It's a shared septic. I've talked to Bill Brookings a couple times. He said, if it's a shared septic, maybe we can. If it's not a shared septic, maybe we can. But you know what? I'd like to get a little bit more information on what it is, what it does, who can we talk to, so I'll have more for you on this next week. All right. All right. Again, this is a nice, but I don't think right now. All right. We'll skip over this one.
Right. Well, we don't have to, we just don't remove it right now. We don't make it a #1 priority. I think it has a life of its own outside of this.
All right. This was a repeat from down here.
Well, the lower one was to take everything out of it. This one was to actually design it and build storage shelves. So it's not just, those buildings weren't designed for storage, but there's crap in them. We designed them for storage, but they both can go away for the building and facilities assessment.
Okay. All right. We'll leave
Wouldn't it be easier to conduct the building and facilities assessment if some of the junk was thrown out first?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yes, but those two particular lines are to build storage shelves and walls and climate controls, which I don't think we're ready for yet. So 37 and 38 both could be X'd out.
All right. Scooting up. Bullet House. Do we want to? Yeah, we're pretty good with those.
33 is. But anyway.
Take out 33?
It was the combination of, I think 33 is the duplicative one from town meeting, although the town meeting one also says architectural services. But I think, but keep them all for now. The numbers might change based on what happens in town meeting.
All right. Again,
look
another
at
highway.
The work you guys are doing. I love it.
Margaret, don't kill her. Don't kill it, Margaret. All right. This one, that's a Beth thing. Fred. All right, this one, you know what? I had put it on there. I pulled it out of the ADA stuff. I know that Rec could also put something there. I don't know if we could use, Margaret, you said that we had some monies left over from
it's roughly $2,700. It's petty change, and Fred could probably go out to Lowe's or wherever and buy some parts to spruce up or buy some like wood preservative and spruce up the gazebo. So
okay, all right, leave it, take it. When do we have to use the money by?
2026.
Or turn it back.
You have to commit it by December 2024 and use it by December.
No, the leftover street money.
Oh, that June.
Soon.
Yeah.
Really
so
fast.
it's June as in month, not June as in
no, you have to use it by this June. This is it. It expires the end of June.
Do you think he can do that by then?
Oh no, he just needs to buy the supplies and they can schedule.
Time. Does he have the time?
I don't know.
Well, if you were going to leave that there, could you also use it to say you were going to hire a painter to come in to do it if Fred doesn't have the time or something like that?
Yep.
All right. Okay.
Absolutely could.
Right. Irrigation. Correct. Same thing with the snack shack for running water.
Is some of this stuff able to use their revolving fund for?
No money.
I don't know.
Yeah, but the revolving fund is already stretched thin because we also want them to use the revolving fund to do the repairs to the fields and other stuff. And so,
well, no, that's why I'm asking. I'm asking because does it fall into a category where not the playground, but
the fields,
the irrigation.
Oh.
I mean, yes, I think it could come from their revolving fund. I just don't think they have enough money in it to do this and the stuff they need to
You'd
be
really
doing.
have to bump up fees in order to do that if you're going to do it from revolving, I think.
Okay.
Right. Leave it. I think we're getting down to it. Oh, this to me is a budget item. This isn't ARPA money.
I agree.
Yeah.
I left that in my first round of conversation.
Yep.
But I agree.
Line 14 is old. It's a current ARPA project, so that's done.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Well, it is a use of ARPA funds. If this is a spreadsheet of use of ARPA funds.
Oh yeah. Peg, do you just want to note in line 14 that's in progress, or that's
in progress and done?
Or?
And I don't know how it's been allocated. Like we only allocated the fiscal year 22 or 23, or how many years we've set aside enough money to make sure we don't use it up.
Yeah, Scott's right. We actually need to sit down and do that as a whole project. And what year you want to end it? Do you want
year by year?
Progressive?
Tell me what 15 is.
That was another one that I think is a budget thing. I don't think it should be funded by ARPA. Sorry.
That's a recurring expense.
Yeah, yep. And we're trying to avoid recurring expenses with this.
All right, thank you, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that one. All right, so this one was this fall under Margaret and Scott, the ones that we talked about, like a whole building evaluation?
I think it could.
Yeah, it could. It could be tied into that.
Right. I think a feasibility study is whether or not the town would benefit from having one, as opposed to what is the best building to use for it. It's not something I think the Council on Aging has asked for a couple of times, and so I think that stays at least for this cut.
Margaret, this one was, were you talking about this one today?
That is money that we've appropriated $100,000 to this particular project, and I'm waiting now for the updated proposal on cost and timeline. So I don't know if additional funds would be needed.
Yep.
Okay. All right, Chris is going to yell at me because obviously I spelled it incorrectly. You know what, Chris, I'm going to leave it there and I'm going to make you fix it next week. All right.
Appropriated.
You're really close.
Appropriated. So this one we talked about earlier. Well, the Wi-Fi. Yes, no, leave it. Oh, look, it's up there.
Where do we talk about Wi-Fi?
Right here. Weren't we talking about one from, that was like way down.
It was the one that James Royer put in the same thing.
No, he was talking about, James Royer put in one for us to be our own internet service provider. This is actually just improving Wi-Fi service in town center. So there's potentially free Wi-Fi for people who are hanging out in that part of town, and just making sure that we have good service and fiber as opposed to cable modems at town buildings.
So leave it, strike it?
I would leave it for now. It doesn't mean it won't be striked or moved later down, but.
You can cross this one out because I have reached out to Bob to ask him to keep his eyes and ears open because it's possible that we'll be seeing some assistance to libraries and schools through the infrastructure program. We'll see, infrastructure funding.
Good.
All right. So our assessment.
I think this is the duplicative one of the one that's further down on the list.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is the building assessment. So I think 8 is duplicative. It could come out.
You didn't take the other one out?
I could care less which one of them. No, I think it's duplicate of, sorry, I have a slightly different listing, but way down at the bottom of the list was a consultant to evaluate town facilities and capital needs. It's like 80 or so on my list.
Capital planning?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because the description is, I've been nominated to speak on behalf of capital planner, desire to hire a firm or select to look at town facilities and make recommendations. So I think that is duplicative of the line up above.
All right. So let me get rid of the line up above. We're going that way. We're getting there. We're running out of lines. Thank you, Mary. All right. Public drinking water filtration system.
What are we talking about there?
Town office building.
Yeah, the drinkability.
Is this something that we could put in the budget?
Well, I think most of these you could put in the budget.
I'm not really
I think
familiar with
Is this something that's going to repeat itself every year?
drinking water filtration system. Is this to replace the water coolers, June? Do you know?
It could be part of that. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if that would be the highest priority.
I think it would drop. I think it at least drops down.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good to have healthy drinking water, of course.
And tell me what number 6 is.
See, I like number 6.
You know what? That can go because we've got a warrant article to fund the Bridge Academy. It's gone.
Okay, sure.
Oh wow, this is great.
I'd almost rather pay for it from here, but I don't care enough to spend more time on that.
This is covered below with capital.
Yes, I think 5 is also duplicative of what. Well, sorry, I keep going back to you have the one right below it and.
What about 4? This is the one where Chris wants to. She's offered to go plant things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, after I have my back surgery, I'll do that.
So the article that expands the article on the town meeting warrant that expands the purpose of the parking lot project would actually cover some of this. Would actually cover landscaping, access improvements. I don't know if it goes so far as structure improvements, but it would cover some of this. So there is potentially funding available.
And some of those other things in that list are other lines, snack rock connection, upgrades, landscaping.
It really kills me that I can't just go do it myself.
You know what? Just do it at night and wear black. All right. So
No, I mean I can't physically do it.
Yeah.
I know. All right.
So if you can explain, this is the difference between 2 and 3. I get there's probably a difference.
Okay.
But
complete streets prioritization plan projects are typically sidewalks. They don't delve into culvert repairs and things like that. 3 expands on it.
Okay.
You could probably combine the 2 for general infrastructure.
And so this is the Route 62 study and puts us in a place, as it says, to qualify for Matt grants and TIP for.
Yeah, that could be. So you're talking large scale projects with.
So I think this is likely 2 and 3 combined is likely a 6-figure project all by itself.
Oh, could be. Right? Yeah. Complete streets alone for the sidewalks, and I know there was a lot of interest in sidewalks through this. Those are lower cost projects. But some of them, especially in the village center, could end up being potentially tied to large infrastructure projects.
Right.
All right.
And
so we
have to remember that sidewalks have a lot of ongoing costs. Not only do they have to be plowed in the winter times, they have to be replaced and repaired on a regular basis to make sure apparently New England has this thing called winter where pavement sliders can slide up and down and around and cause tripping hazards.
Okay. All right. So what I will do is I will save this and then I will whiz it back around for everybody. So appreciate the.
And Peg, how much you work with spreadsheets? I'd almost put all the lower priority ones on a separate tab, so we have just one tab of current priorities. Because I think if we regularly look this over and drop a few and move a few up, and maybe have someone look into some of them, we might get to the point where some get into a shape where we could say, I think this one is ready to move on to another step or so.
Okay,
I think it's getting more digestible.
Yes, agreed. All right, so onward we go.
See, we can talk about ARPA for a half hour and not be at odds with each other. See, it can happen.
I know. You were saving it up for future meetings. All right.
Although the police chief is raising his hand after this, so maybe we weren't as nice to each other as we thought.
Wow. All right. Let's see. So what do we have?
He's been promoted.
I'm here. I was just going to comment on number 6. We just got notified of a grant. Hold on.
Oh,
Just lost Eric.
He must be
He said
driving
our
down
favorite words,
Lancaster
notified
Road.
of grant, and then
I know. Oh, there he
goes.
is.
I just got promoted up, so I get a little standby there. So I just got notified last week. The state is issuing $1 million in grant funding towards the Bridge Academy.
Nice.
However, there's 900 officers in the Bridge Academy currently. So do $1 million divided by 900, and they're going to give up to 3,000. First come, first serve.
Mhm.
So I've advised all 3 officers that are in the Bridge Academy, please expedite and please let me know the second you're done. I have to file individually on each officer. I just can't do one thing. Each officer will get it. So we're hoping that this is going to carry on into next year and the year after as well. We're hoping the funding goes up a little bit. So
the article, Eric, will cover 2 years, the coming 2 years. So
so we have to cover the cost, but they're going to reimburse us the cost.
Right.
Well, up to 3,000. I think we figured out it's almost 6,000 per officer to put them through. So plus about
every penny helps
right now in ammo.
that's right.
Absolutely.
So it'd be nice to get some money back.
There's also something to continue to talk to our state elected officials about, because it is an unfunded state mandate.
Yes, it is.
You know, the state can kick in more, and we're not the only town. I mean, if it's 6,000 officers for us, and we're struggling, you know, Worcester and Boston that have, you know, multiple times the number of people.
Yeah. So
much huger cost.
Yeah, and the toughest part, the predicament we're in right now, 2 years ago, we're about 18 cents a round for ammunition. Now we're around $1 a round. Each county needs 1,500 rounds. So what used to cost us maybe $300 now costs us $1,500 per officer. That's why, if you remember, a few months back, I spent the money on the Milo simulated training equipment so that we could actually save significant money in ammo over the next few years. We don't see it going down, only going up.
You know, make your own ammo. I have my grandfather's house when we used to go hunting. We'd make our own ammo in the back with the crimpers and the
That's what I was going to say. You know what? My grandmother, we used to sit around the table and you know, make her own cigarettes with like the little roller and things like that. Come on, Eric. You know, we'll have like a Saturday get together on make your own ammo down at the police station.
Yeah.
That used to be the rule in our household, is that you couldn't shoot it unless you could reload.
Make it. Yep.
There you go. See, Eric, problem solvers.
So I have 5 volunteers to help me. So all right.
Yes. Yep. Be down there on
and
Saturday.
The liability insurance would do what if we were making
Oh, cool. Eric, keep us posted. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Chief Charter.
All right, a couple more to go and then we're almost done. So Coffee Talk is coming up in a couple weeks, 21st. So I know that the main point is to talk about the warrant articles that are out there to help scoot town meeting along, but didn't know if Eric left, but didn't know if we should like have him, invite Chief Clark, Fred.
I think we have a long enough meeting just going over the warrant articles.
Yeah,
especially if we're going to have some people explaining them a little bit more. I think if we try to get zoning and planning in for theirs, if we have some others that take a little bit, you know, capital planning talking about theirs, CPA talking about theirs, I think we can keep the number of speakers pretty broad and going.
I apologize if I've missed this, but if all the article sponsors have not yet been invited to Coffee Talk, Mary, would you please send them an email and invite them to attend Coffee Talk to speak to their articles?
In order of appearance on the warrant, so because they won't have scheduled time, so we'll just say stand by. Yeah.
Right.
They'll be in the order, and we'll the like 6 to 13 or whatever. There's a bunch of sort of perfunctory that happens every year that I think as select board members would say, look, these are the ones that happen every year. You can talk to us afterwards if you have questions about them, just to jump, because I think the goal is to give the ones that are more complicated and require a little bit more thought, a little bit more time. And I think the intent of this is,
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, just the intent of this is to potentially lower some of the questions that might happen on the floor of town meeting, because more people just are knowledgeable, and the people who have more controversial ones get a chance to maybe do their own meeting in the next week or two.
I know that the Berlin School Committee, you know, there's been information out there and stuff. And I know that doesn't happen until November. Is that true, the elections? So,
yes, but I have already told them about this coffee talk.
So then, you know what, we give them 10 to 15 minutes in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Good.
You have,
right, so
you have emails that you can send additional information to them, Peg?
For what? As to what it is and what we need them to do?
School committee members like Lori Hart or...
I can make something up. Yeah.
No. I mean, do you have their email addresses?
So we can invite them.
Yes.
Okay, if you need them, you know, they're very simple. All the names are the first initial, last name at bbrsd.org.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we'll give them, because we kick off at what, 6:30? If Peg can remember to be on time. So we'll give them to quarter of, 10 of?
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
well, unless you're going to do a little introduction or something.
We'll do, you know how fast I can whiz through introductions. So here we are. Hi, welcome. You know, we're not going to talk. We're not going to deliberate. Questions go. So we'll set them for 6:35. We'll start on time. We'll give them to 6:50. That's 15 minutes.
And this is going to be posted as a select board meeting, so that does allow us to have some conversation if we need to.
Some, yes. No deliberation, no voting. Yep. All right. Easy peasy. That one was done. Yeah. Okay. There you go. There's the next one that's up. Town administrator search process. Discuss next steps and approve TA job description.
Well, we could start with the TA job description. So that is in the standardized HRS format, and Personnel Committee approved it last Wednesday. There was just a very minor change on the top line. When Sandy initially went through, presented the draft job descriptions, we all had an opportunity to go through and make revisions. She incorporated the revisions that I suggested. So if the board's good with it, I ask the board to vote to approve that job description to go with the Select Board Town Administrator Act.
Is this the job description? See, I don't have my other
monitor.
Yeah. So is this the one that I happened to look at this afternoon that had a whole bunch of selectmen in it?
Uh-oh, if it did, we need to change that to Select Board, Select Board, Select Board.
Because I don't want to be the only one doing it.
Let's see. I'm going to pull up this and job description.
And I would also ask you, Margaret, is there anything in there that you feel is could be missing? Or
first paragraph.
Oh, there's one.
What is that? Item. All right. So what we need to do is just change Board of Selectmen to Select Board.
Yep.
Throughout.
Yep. Yeah, because it's I see it like 4 or 5 times.
Chris,
now that's been pointed out, it screams.
Yeah, I'm not concerned with items that I should be doing that are not in here. I thought there was a reference to, let me see, I think there is something here that I thought, no, this should not be me. It is, oh, right here. And I didn't express this as a concern. Designation as notary public preferred. Now that would be something that an administrative assistant might be asked to do, but it's not something.
Eloise is also.
And Eloise is a notary public. Dennis is also.
Dennis is a notary too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But anyway, overall, I was satisfied with the job description.
Well, you know, when I do job descriptions or new job descriptions, I generally want to ask the person who's in the job, you know, what is it you feel might be improved upon in this job?
There's no reference to COVID here, but hopefully that is.
Oh, Margaret, how dare you?
No, I
Oh.
think this really does cover it. And if this is attached to the to the Select Board Town Administrator Act, then it's really going to cover all the responsibilities and duties. So,
Okay.
Is there anything in here that says that we must allow time off to attend spring training for the Red Sox? Just curious. Little footnote in there, Margaret.
Well, that was specific to me. I don't know if your next one's going to have that.
Right.
All right. So do you want a motion pending changes from Board of Selectmen to Select Board? And then are you going to remove the notary line or leave it? Do you care?
No, I'm
It's
going to
not
leave it.
critical?
I'll leave it.
Yeah.
I'll leave
Yeah.
it. It makes it
It's
optional.
at least preferred. It's yeah.
Yeah,
right.
and yeah, so I would suggest approving it as amended with Board of Selectmen change to Select Board throughout.
Okay.
I like that
So
motion.
moved.
Second,
Stone eye.
Hawkins eye.
Keith, aye.
All right. So then next question is, where is it going to go? So we want to post it right away, get going on it.
I thought the process was going to be is that we were going to hire an outside agency to assist with this.
Yeah, I think it's a big process.
Right,
It
and
is
so
a big
I'm
process.
not sure whether or not, so in our procurement, can we just hire the company that helped us last time? Do we have to do an RFP, an RFR? Do we, what is going to slow this down?
I don't
for
know
us?
how big the project was last time. Honestly, I wasn't in that beginning
don't-
part of it. However, there should be some savings realized this time because I emailed Mary earlier today asking for her to pull out the community
Yeah.
profile that MRI had done. I think there are some things that we can actually start with.
Yeah.
So if you have that, that's going to eliminate that part of the work.
Yep. Right,
Chris,
and the only thing that's going to really be different from this advertisement, unless they might not have even said this in the advertisement, but you know, I think we played up a little bit. We are hiring our first town administrator. You know, I think that's not true anymore. But the rest of it, the general things you're going to be working on, the projects that be done, are pretty standard out there. I think we could do it for less, but I still think, you know, having the outside agency receive the resumes, do the first cuts, that we as select board appoint an interview committee that narrows it down to 3 candidates, and that we interview the last 3. Or do we know? I can't remember.
You did the final 3. Yep.
Right. Yep. We did the final 3 and recommended 1 to the select board that then did an interview and a completion. And I thought that process worked well. Now I was a participant as a citizen on the interview committee, but I thought as a whole that process worked fairly well.
Yeah.
And I thought that
it was extremely thorough, thorough.
And I think it adds credibility to hire a professional company to help us through this, shows that we're serious about doing it right. And I think our job, as select board, is going to be trying to find a crew of volunteers that are as representative across spectrums and domains as I thought we had on that committee. Because I think we had both staff and volunteers from a variety of different perspectives on it. I thought it was a good group of people.
So then we'll need to update the employment opportunity, correct? Take out, you know, the first line administrator, make sure that, you know,
a few things with the first time administrator. Yeah.
Well, and make sure that we have the amount of employees in our budget and et cetera.
Yeah.
Et cetera.
So those are fairly easy to update, and then we could take care. All right, so the next step is going to be, Scott just kind of outlined the steps or the duties we're looking for from the recruiting agency. So, you know, I could put together something and give it back to the board as, you know, as a suggestion or a recommendation for what you're going to be looking for in the scope of work.
So
what about salary? Do you want to leave it where it is?
Okay.
She just wrote an email about
I had a thought about this, and I haven't had a chance to really run it by the board. But and I sent you the FY22 market comps, our market comps. I am slightly above our average, the average of our comps. And if we had made a slight adjustment to Paxton's low rate, which by the way, Paxton is advertising now too. But if we had made an adjustment to that to bring that up a little bit, based on the hourly rate that would come out to, the average hourly rate, I think that the salary line could be reduced by about $10,000 and still be competitive, competitive enough to attract qualified candidates. Of course, my suggestions go beyond that, and we can talk a little bit more about that later, but I do think, and this has been discussed at personnel committee meetings before, and I think I actually presented it on town staffing needs to you, I do think that the town really does need to look at some HR administrator support, someone with experience in HR. I mean, it's easy enough, it's simple enough to do the routine things, but when you get into administering things like FMLA or, you know, or grievances or even lengthy collective bargaining, HR becomes a huge part of the job. So I didn't know if you wanted to consider maybe reallocating that for next year, but that's a next year thing. As far as salary, I do think that if the salary was reduced by $10,000, the budget amount reduced, I do think that you'd still be competitive with similar sized towns.
So did you answer the question that Scott had about when do we need to go out for an RFQ for a firm to help us? Depends
on the cost. If we can do some of the work ourselves and keep it under $10,000, it's going to be best business practice. And that, you know, that would allow best business practice. I mean, we could solicit quotes, but we also have the option of choosing the company that worked for us last time and did a great job and things like that. So I could ask for proposals. When would we contact them? As soon as possible.
Yesterday.
Right, I was gonna say,
as soon as possible.
Is it worthy of, because they're going to understand procurement rules too.
Yep.
They only do government stuff. It's like, you know, you did this for us last time. Are things that we can do to keep the cost? I don't think it was 10,000 last time. And although I wasn't a select board, so I don't know the full cost. But what can be done and is that a rational thing for us to be doing the things they need us to do to keep it under 10 grand? And I'm hoping the answer to that is an easy yes.
I don't know. I think it was more, I'm sure it was more than 10 grand, right?
I think that we could do some things that could keep it under that. I really do.
Right. I think they wrote the community profile for us for the 10 grand because we didn't have a town administrator to help us with those type of things. Yeah. And sort of the history, the demographics of the town have not changed tons. Probably there's a little bit of tweaking, but I think town staff could, you know, tweak the little things that have changed in 2 years, and other little things along those lines that hopefully could keep us underneath that threshold.
Yeah, well, I agree. I guess I would ask Peg and Scott if you thought it would be okay if Margaret contacted them.
I think it's fine. I see no problem with Margaret contacting it because she's not going to be a candidate. Because if she was going to be a candidate, then we could save ourselves a whole bunch of process stuff and just sign another contract.
I have no problem contacting 3 recruiters. I'm familiar with them all, and there's no skin in the game for me, so I don't have a problem if the board's okay with it.
Well, the gentleman that helped us the last time was, I can't remember.
Steve Rollins.
I don't remember.
And Steve Rollins. Which I thought he was very helpful. I think I had to work with him.
Oh, and I remember he called all of us too, what we wanted in a TA. I remember that. Yep. And see, he doesn't have to do that now. That's
right.
You know, so if there's another candidate that shows up and her name happens to be Marguerite von Nardastan, then, you know, maybe a little shorter hair, blonde. Accent. Yeah, there you go. You got to practice an accent. But yeah, no, I think a lot of his work we don't need because we already have it.
Yep.
Right. So, I mean, I would have no problem if it was all right with you two, if Margaret called.
Okay.
I think it's good.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
'cause
Mary,
unfortunately-
if you can find that community profile and the whatever other materials were given to the town at the beginning of that process, I would appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah, because unfortunately 3 months is going to go by lickety split, and you got to figure
Right.
the time if we find someone who's working to get them in and get them time with Margaret. Yes, Miss June.
It was approximately 13,000 that we paid out last time.
Nice.
All right.
Okay.
Yep. Definitely need to reduce that.
Right, but I, as we pointed out, they don't have to do rounds of calling town
Correct.
leaders about what they're looking for in a town administrator. They don't have to build a community profile. They don't have to rebuild a job description. It makes me feel like saying this will be below 10,000 is doable without putting a lot of extra burden on town staff.
Yeah.
All right. Are we gonna, so we'll let them post everything. We won't put it
Right.
out on MMA.org or anything? No, yes,
I
no?
don't think,
Okay.
I think those are small tasks they could take care of.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And then I think the three of us should be thinking about what the makeup of, I forget if it was 5 or 6 or 7 sort of interview committee that's looking at the last several candidates. I don't think we're saying any names today. But if I start putting in the back of our brains, I think that gets us closer to figuring out,
Yeah.
you know, how many staff people, how many other elected officials, you know, what levels of staffing, what areas of town we think should be covered.
I mean, yeah, because you definitely want input, but you don't want, paralysis analysis either of
Right.
inviting 25 people to sit on a committee and
Right.
fight. Okay.
Right.
All right. All right. Well, we'll leave that on the agenda for next week too. More continued discussion, and then, M2, you can let us know what you find out.
Yep.
Will
All right.
do.
And our last board questions, comments, update, liaison updates.
Chris, go for it.
All right, on the 29th of March, I had a council on aging meeting I went to, and they mentioned that there were 111 grab and go meals that they did.
Wow.
Very nice.
Okay.
The next Powderhouse News, the deadline is April 22nd. There's been an increase in the mailing cost from $229 to $335. The council's considering a change in printing company, LPI to Clinton Offset, and they usually put out about 750 issues. A survey will be included in the Powderhouse News on whether the Council on Aging is meeting the needs of the residents. Events to be co-sponsored were Seco Stompers, a May date to be determined. And Cordelia's Farm, I believe Tim and Janet were going to come to the 1870 Town Hall at 7 o'clock on April 29th. And then they were talking about an Abby Kelly Foster presentation in June. The Museum of Fine Arts, there's going to be a free webinar. It's free to those who go to the webinar. It did cost the Council on Aging $400. It's online. It's called Art in Bloom, and it's going to be on April 9th at 11 a.m. And you'll be with the cost of $400 entails 96 different devices can have the link to the hour-long webinar. The notice will go out in the item and the Berlin Neighbors Connect about the webinar, and a link will be needed, which I assume will be emailed to you. Dr. Jane webinar is also being considered, Q&A for seniors. And Victoria is meeting with Clinton, Bolton, Lancaster to discuss home health aid and regional approach to any other issues. The next meeting is April 26th at 4 o'clock. Some of the COA members are in person and some are on Zoom. That's it for that. And then I just wanted to ask a question that a resident asked me at the transfer station. He was wondering how much like-kind soil has been trucked up to Maplewood Farm, and would Weston and Sampson know? Wake up, everybody.
No,
Well done.
So that's similar to the question about Highland. Yeah.
We've asked this question before. I've got to find out when we asked that question. I know that has.
Well, Highland, I thought when we asked them, they said it was like 650 trucks more to go, but I don't know if Highland, we know how much has been done over the last 10 years.
I'm not quite sure how that would help someone to know that. Most people want to know how much is left to be taken up there.
Well, and maybe that's it. If you find out how much has gone up and how much is supposed to go up, have they gone over? Are they done? And if only 20 more trucks can go up and all of a sudden 50 go up, what happens?
Well, I don't think there was any
My limited understanding of the agreement between Maplewood Farms and the town is there's not such a number in the agreement.
I don't think so.
There is an estimated end date, but it doesn't describe what end looks like. So, and they're past that estimated end date.
You know what? I'm going to Concom on Wednesday. Let me, maybe they have some skinny. Let me write it down. I can ask.
We have a reminder set for April to start getting in touch with them about renewing their earthwork permit if they need it. So,
okay.
Maybe at some point we just need an executive session so we can refresh ourselves on what is in and not in that sealed agreement.
Okay, well, that was my question and my liaison update.
I have a couple of questions, but I've decided I'm too tired to pursue them. I'll save them for next week.
I know. I don't know why I'm wiped out.
And my updates are quick. No earthworks has met. No energy has met. You know what recreation's doing. I'll give you conservation next week.
There.
Done.
Oh, good.
All right, so, Margaret, June, anything? Time to go? Yeah.
Sleep.
Okay. Go to sleep. Yes, next, go to sleep. All right.
So I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I would second that motion.
Boom chakalaka. Stone eye.
Hawkins eye.
Keefe eye.
All right. See you next week,
everyone.
Stay safe, everyone. Take care. Good night.